Hello everyone, Michael here. Hope you're doing well. Today is an exciting day for me. It's the release day of my brand new book, Pray No More, which is book 2 in my SHIFFY PI Mystery Series. It's the follow-up novel to last year's Run No More, which came out I think in June or July of 2021. And the main character, Alexa Schifflett, is actually a character that I created, and she played a small role in my Lance Brody Supernatural suspense series. She popped up in books 4 and 5, I believe, of that series. But don't worry, if you haven't read the Lance series, you can still read the SHIFFY PI series and not miss out on anything. But anyway, I'm really excited about this book. It took me a little bit longer to get out than I had initially anticipated, but it's here now. And to kick things off and celebrate, I'm going to read you guys chapter 1 of the book and then end this video with a short teaser trailer. And if you like what you hear or like what you see and you want to find out more, I will put the link to the books down in the description below. It's available in ebook and paperback from Amazon, and it's also part of Kindle Unlimited. So, hope you enjoy. Let's go. Pray No More by Michael Robertson Jr. Chapter 1. Alexa Schifflett was more concerned with the ticking hand of the clock on the wall than she was the photograph of the penis laying on her desk. It wasn't a photograph of only a penis. The rest of the man's body was in frame too, and so was the woman. She was also naked, sprawled out on the motel room bed with a freshly fucked look on her face. In the weak glow of the bedside lamp, the sweat that slicked her body glistened. It was amazing how detailed the images from the little spy camera had turned out, considering the device was barely the size of 3 or 4 quarters stacked together. Technology had come a long way since the Polaroid snapshots Alexa and her friends used to take when they were just kids. The man in the picture, Adrian Van Fleet, was 49 years old and worked in middle management for East River Bank and Trust. Fully exposed the way he was in the photograph, he looked his age. Not terribly out of shape, mind you, but suffering from the usual gamut of telltale physical signs of aging. Soft paunch of a belly, drooping skin where muscle had once been, chest and pubic hair streaked gray, and a set of balls that dangled significantly lower than they used to. Okay, maybe the camera was a little too detailed. But again, for a man of 49, Alexa figured he could have looked much worse. Probably fought off the extremes of aging by jumping on the treadmill or the Peloton a few days a week. It was the juxtaposition of the young woman's body he was standing beside that would make somebody do a double take. Realize something was off with this whole scene. The naked woman on the bed, Kate Williams, was 24 years old and had started working at the bank as a teller 3 months ago, according to Adrian's wife, Michelle, who was seated across the desk from Alexa now. Michelle said it had been about a month ago she started having suspicions, and a little less than 2 weeks ago she had called the SHIFFY PI office and requested an appointment with Alexa to discuss employing Alexa's firm to determine whether Adrian was having the affair that Michelle feared. Alexa slid the 8x10 photograph of Michelle's naked husband and his mistress across the desk and gave the clock another glance. It was 5 minutes until 6. She was going to be late for her dinner with Ezra. Apparently, the babysitter Michelle had lined up for her 2 young children had had to cancel last minute, leaving Michelle with the choice of scrambling to find another babysitter with no notice, or bringing her kids along to find out their daddy was an asshole. Alexa had offered to reschedule the meeting for the next day, but Michelle had insisted. Said she didn't want to inconvenience Alexa because she knew how valuable her time was. She'd found a sitter, but she'd ended up arriving at the office 45 minutes late. Michelle Van Fleet, 3 years younger than her husband, was taller than Alexa, somewhere in the ballpark of 5'9" or so, and very pretty, in Alexa's opinion. She had almond-shaped hazel eyes, and as she leaned forward and looked down at the photograph on the desk, her brown hair falling elegantly around her face, Alexa inhaled the scent of the woman's subtly sweet perfume and felt fresh anger burn inside her. Anger at Adrian Van Fleet, anger at all the cheating bastards out there. She doesn't deserve this, Alexa thought as Michelle looked up from the photograph, her face stoic, the truth hitting her more as a confirmed fact than a surprise. For a second, Alexa felt somewhat guilty. She had several other photos she could have shown Michelle to verify that Adrian had been fucking the young teller, but Alexa had purposely chosen one of the more explicit ones, though not the most explicit. She wanted no doubt to be left in Michelle's mind, wanted no room left for misinterpretation. Alexa wanted Adrian to burn, and Michelle was the only one who could light the match. "Well," Michelle said, forcing a small, sad smile, "I guess that just confirms what I've known all along." Alexa nodded. "But now you have the proof." Michelle glanced down at the photograph again, cleared her throat and picked it up and held it in front of her face. Shook her head. "How did you even get this?" Alexa shrugged. "Doesn't matter how I got it. What matters is what it shows. He's a scumbag, Michelle." Truthfully, it hadn't been all that difficult to get the picture. Alexa had already had the spy camera from another case, and to her credit, Michelle Van Fleet had done a bit of her own investigative work. Once she'd started having the rumblings of suspicion that her husband was cheating, she had gone back and combed through text messages he'd sent to her over the last couple months, noting down all the days he told her he'd have to work late, or that he was going for a drink with some of the guys from the office, or going to catch some of the game at one of several sports bars or pubs in East River. A pattern had emerged from those messages, a simple code cracked. Turned out, Adrian alternated Tuesday and Thursday nights each week as his designated night of mischief. Maybe for a banker, that was the best he could do for an attempt at randomness. So, last Thursday, Alexa had followed Adrian Van Fleet from the bank after he'd left work, and she'd easily caught his rendezvous with Kate Williams at a little run-down motel 20 minutes outside of East River. A crisp 100 slid across the desk to the woman behind the front desk, who had hardly looked up from her magazine as she accepted the cash and spoke, had been enough to confirm that Adrian and Kate had been making this visit for several weeks, though they thought they were being clever by alternating who would come inside to pay. Always with cash, because this was the kind of place that didn't ask questions. Unfortunately for Adrian, it was also the kind of place that would give answers if the price was right. The next Tuesday, yesterday, Alexa had made an early trip back to the motel. The same woman was behind the desk, and Alexa wondered if she'd ever left. Another 100 was slid across the counter. This time, the 100 bought the key to room 7 so Alexa could take a quick look inside, and also the promise that if Adrian and Kate showed up today, room 7 would be the one they'd get assigned. Easy peasy. The spy camera, which Alexa had hidden between the room's ancient television and a dusty ice bucket — Alexa had yet to see an ice machine anywhere — was set to be triggered by motion. Alexa drove back to East River, had a nice lunch, which of course would be billed to Michelle Van Fleet, did some shopping, buying a cute top for her girlfriend Piper, and then drove back to the motel and parked in the back corner of the lot and waited. She had timed it almost perfectly. 15 minutes later, Adrian Van Fleet had hurried from room 7 to his waiting Lexus without even looking up. Kate Williams came out 5 minutes later and drove away in her white Toyota Camry. Alexa retrieved her camera from the room that still smelled of sweat and sex, gave the key back to the woman at the front desk, who grunted something unintelligible when Alexa thanked her, and then drove home, satisfied that the job was done. I've also got normal pictures of the two of them arriving and leaving the motel, one with their cars parked out front at the same time, Alexa said. You know, normal legal stuff that would be admissible in court. But, well, might leave room for argument. She tapped the picture of Michelle's naked husband. Hard to argue these, privately. Take care of the special ones. Across the desk from her, Michelle Van Fleet sighed and looked around the office space, as if in search of an answer to her question. What am I going to do now? Alexa, glancing to the clock again, ready to stand and escort Michelle out, stayed put and leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms and giving the woman a stern look. You're going to go home, show Adrian that picture, file for divorce, milk him for every fucking cent he has, and then go do whatever you want. Don't think twice about it. Michelle nodded slowly and then gave a small smile one gives when they're talking to somebody who doesn't fully understand where they're coming from. It's not that simple. Bullshit, Alexa said. She lunged forward and snatched up the picture and held it up, pointed to Kate Williams's naked body. Your husband is Your husband is having sex with a young woman he works with. What's not simple about that? Michelle looked away again, staring into the corner of the room, her mind far from the SHIFFY PI office. When she looked back to Alexa, the woman suddenly looked tired. I have to think about the kids, she said, and what's best for them. Do I want them growing up in a broken household? figuring out schedules for who gets them at Christmas, for birthdays. Alexa sat dumbfounded. She thought about her own childhood, about the nightmares she'd lived through when she'd barely been a teenager and all the long, hard years that had followed until she'd landed in Silent Falls. She shook her head. Michelle, there are a lot worse scenarios those kids could experience than joint custody. Trust me. Michelle smiled politely, nodded her head and pushed back from the desk and stood up. Thank you so much for this, she said. She picked up the photograph and placed it back inside the open blue folder with the others Alexa had printed. She flipped it closed and then tucked the whole thing into her purse, the top sticking out like a bookmark. You did great work, as weird as that sounds, given the circumstances. Alexa didn't move, watched as Michelle gathered her purse and the light jacket she'd been wearing. She cannot be serious, she thought. There's no way she's going to stay married to that asshole. You'll send me the bill? Michelle asked, heading for the door. She was gone before Alexa could say yes, leaving Alexa in the office with only the sound of the ticking hand of the clock, reminding her she was late, and a frustrating feeling that Michelle Van Fleet wasn't thinking straight. Alexa took a deep breath and sighed. Not my problem, she told herself as she locked her computer, shut off the lights, and then stepped out onto the stairway landing, the smell of coffee and baked goods rising up to her from the cafe on the building's ground floor. Alexa climbed the steps up to the third floor, which was the loft apartment where she lived, quickly changed her clothes, shot Ezra a text message letting him know she was on her way now, and then made it as far as the landing outside her office door again before she stopped in her tracks. A tall man wearing black slacks and a neatly pressed white dress shirt with the top two buttons undone was leaning against her office door, one foot crossed over the other, looking as casual as if he were waiting for a bus. He was handsome, with a coffee from the cafe in one hand and in the other a large manila envelope. He wore a thick gold chain around his neck that might have been tacky on anyone else, and even though he smiled at her, Alexa saw the seriousness in his eyes. Hello, Alexa. Got a few minutes to chat? Alexa wanted to say no, would have said no to most everybody else. But she knew this was not somebody you were supposed to say no to.